Hey guys, so after last year's Fukushima disaster, the Japanese government decided that it would shut down its other nuclear reactor plant that was in a different part of Japan. Basically, Honshu, the main island of Japan, is divided into two power grids. There's a western one and an eastern one. And Fukushima, where the disaster happened, is part of the eastern electricity grid. And there's another nuclear power plant in the western part of Honshu that contributes to that separate grid, so two separate grids. So soon after the Fukushima disaster, the Japanese government decided that the other nuclear plant that had been quite happily operating for a long period of time with no problems also needed to be shut down quickly. So, you know, hard to know if it really needed to be shut down or if it was just to be seen to be doing something. You know, the government wanted to be seen to be taking some action, or who knows, but they just shut it down. They basically told the private company that operates it to shut it down. But unfortunately, they didn't give that company time to start alternatives, you know, to get other power sources happening. So basically it meant that the western part of Japan, of Honshu, also didn't have adequate power. So it's sort of been interesting because basically what the electricity company did was it just had some press conferences and just said to everybody, okay, we have to shut down this nuclear power plant because the government said we have to, and we're not going to have enough power for everybody, so everybody's going to have to conserve power, or we're going to have to power shed, or what do they call it? Power share, or power, basically shut down different people's power at different times. So I know in a lot of other countries, including Australia, if there's power shortages, that's what eventually happens, is they eventually turn it off to some people for an hour or two and then turn it back on and turn it off somewhere else for a couple of hours, and power share, that's what, power share, something like that. So, but in Japan, of course, the government the company held a press conference and said, our private company, keep in mind it's a private company, holds a press conference and says, you know, we're not going to have enough power for everybody, so we need everybody to save power. And everybody just basically said, and I have not heard anybody, it's been almost a year and 1.5 years, it's over a year, almost 1.5 years since this started, and I've heard nobody complain about it. And I know in a lot of other countries, if a private company failed its consumers like this, that people would be complaining about, or to that private company and about that private company, and also to the government and about the government. And I've heard nothing, absolutely nothing. I'm sure some people somewhere are complaining, but I've heard nothing. And at the moment, we've got middle of summer, and it's been 37 degrees, 38 degrees outside in the sun, which means that sometimes in buildings it even gets higher than that. And I've been to people's homes where you walk in the door and it's just terrible. It's just terrible because they tend to be fairly closed up. Japanese way of living is fairly closed up, so houses and apartments tend to be fairly closed up. And walk in and they'll just have a fan sitting there turning, you know, and it'll be 38 degrees, just terrible. You know, our local city, town dojo is in a gymnasium, and it's on the second floor, and the temperature in there has been over 40 degrees Celsius, and it's just terrible. And interestingly, it was actually shut down for a couple of weeks recently. They shut the dojo for a couple of weeks to install an air conditioner, and they've installed a huge air conditioning system in this dojo. One of the biggest air conditioning systems I've seen, you know, anywhere. A really impressive big air conditioning system. And they installed it. They shut down the dojo to install it. So it took a couple of weeks. Closed the dojo a couple of weeks and installed it, and then reopened the dojo again. And we've in there, and it's 42 degrees in there, 41, 42 degrees Celsius, and we're in there training, and the air conditioning's not turned on. And nobody comments, nobody complains. They comment on the heat, and this is across the board. You'll walk into an office. If it's an office that doesn't get customers, if it's an office that's not open to the public, you know, some office building that's just got staff, just, you know, the company staff working in, they'll have the air conditioning turned on for fresh air, but it'll be set to 28 degrees or 29 degrees or something ridiculous like that. And nobody complains. They comment on the weather, same as people do anywhere, I think, you know, comments about the weather. It's sort of an international language, isn't it? So they'll comment. You know, you'll walk in, they'll say, oh, it's hot, isn't it? Atsui desu ne, it's hot, desu ne. Isn't it hot? Yeah, it's hot. And that's it. That's it. You know, and that Dojo, brand new air conditioning system, big, amazing air conditioning system. And we went back in, and here it is, it was 41, 42 degrees, and people were passing out. There was people going all white and dizzy, and because that's hotter than the body temperature, right? So it's dangerous. And there's people turning white and throwing up and all sorts of stuff from too much heat. Nobody's commenting. Nobody's saying anything about the air conditioner at all. So, you know, you got to admire the Japanese people for their perseverance and for their you know, trying their best, battling through adversity. And that's, you know, a big part of the Japanese psyche is that, you know, if there's adversity or something difficult, you just fight on. And the government's been very clever. The government and the power company's been very clever through all this. They connect it to the disaster. They connect what's happened with us losing this power in the western part of Honshu to the disaster. It's because of the disaster we don't have enough power, and because of the disaster. And if you ask someone and say, you know, why is it we have to shed power? Because of the disaster, because of Fukushima. And in actual fact, it's not. In actual fact, you know, Fukushima triggered the decision for the government to shut down the other power plant, but it's totally separate. It's a separate grid, separate power plant, you know, very different part of Honshu. And, you know, whether it was the right thing to do, shutting it down or not, I got no idea, but you know, it's been safely operating for years, and, you know, it could be easily said that the only reason it was shut down so quickly was political, just so that the government could be seen to be taking some action, you know. So, but everyone just accepts it. It's quite amazing. Everybody just accepts it. Nobody complains. You know, they comment on the heat. Yeah, geez, isn't it hot? Yeah, it's really hot, and that's it. So, you know, so those of you who are in Japan at the moment will know what I'm talking about. You often, we've got a convenience store here ahead of us, you know. You'll often go into convenience stores and find that they've got half the fluoro lights turned off, or they've got, I've been to a few lately that have installed LED light bulbs instead of big fluoros. They'll install these little strips of LED lights. So, you know, companies are, it's sort of, too, you know, you remember the video about the image and the reality, and there is a definite aspect of that to it as well, is that a lot of what's going on is being seen to go on, you know. So people want it, companies and people want it to be obvious that they are doing this. So you go into the convenience store and all the freezers and fridges and everything are still operating as they always are, full of ice cream and luxuries, but, you know, a few of the fluoro lights are turned off to show that, you know, they're making an effort to save power. And same as with the big companies, you know, you go in and there's air conditioning set for 28, and yet at the same time all the other stuff that burns electricity is all still being used. So yeah, if you're already in Japan, you know what I'm talking about. If you're coming to Japan soon, you'll experience this. It's not always the case. Not everybody's doing it. You know, I've been to some homes where you walk in and it's 24. I've been to some businesses where you walk in and it's 24. So not everybody's doing it, but a lot of places are. and you'll find, you know, you walk in somewhere here and some office or something, or some public building, and it'll be 28 degrees, 29 degrees, you know, or hotter. If the aircon, if they've got windows, that's the thing with that dojo, is there's a couple of small windows, and so they consider, if there's a couple of small windows, they consider it to be safe and not need air conditioning, so they just don't turn it on. So that's how it's 41 and 42. If you go to a building that's all sealed up, they figure that you need air conditioning to circulate air, even if it's hot, even if it's warm air, you know. So they'll have it set for 28 or 29 or something like that. So the idea of this video is just an observation, basically, of isn't it interesting, you know? Because I know, for example, in Australia, if they tried the same thing, private company, same thing in Australia, hey guys, we need you to not use power because, you know, we can't give you enough power, basically because of poor planning and poor organisation and, you know, bad decision making from some people. So we can't give you enough power, sorry, so you have to turn everything off. Probably wouldn't work. People would just continue to use all their electricity and probably end up with load shedding. So, you know, it's a classic example of Japanese people just putting their head down and doing their best, you know, in difficult circumstances, no doubt about it. And the other reason I made this video is for the people who might be coming here in the near future. Because yeah, it's the middle of summer now, so it's really hot, like really hot, and of course we just went through winter, and a lot of people use kerosene heating, as you saw during winter. We made a video about that, but the big public buildings, the air conditioning wasn't turned as warm as it normally would be either, so it was pretty cool. So interesting little goings on there. Anyway, hope you found that interesting. More videos coming soon.